Now, welcome back. So we're counting down to throw-in up in Healy Park. 4 o'clock. We'll be up to Brian McQuigg in a couple of moments' time. Cian O'Neill's popped into studio. He's going to keep an eye on the game for us as well. You're very welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Joe.
We were just saying there during the ad break, you suddenly have lots of free hours to play around with. Tough decision to step down after 4 years in charge, or one that you felt was going to happen this year anyway, or give us your thinking on it all?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. I think for all parties involved, it was the right decision. From my own perspective, it was my 14th year consecutive in management at inter-county level, and 4 as a manager. And I think everyone who has made that jump from coach to manager will tell you it's incredibly big. You may not think it when you are the coach or a trainer, but
what was the big difference? What was the big thing that you thought, ooh, even though I was next to a manager all these years, I didn't fully appreciate that they had to do that?
Yeah, it's everything that you probably don't think of as a coach, all the extras. So not just with the players, where you might have 30 to 35 of them, and all the different, maybe personal and sometimes private and sensitive issues, but you also have a background team of 15 to 20 in many cases, and all of them have their own needs, demands, challenges. So it's all of that, and then you align that to county board, related matters, and there's a lot of them. Then you might have supporters club issues, or demands or needs, and then throw in just the general public. So they're the things that you never really consider or think about as a coach. You can kind of rock in, do your job, have your management meetings, player meetings, and then head away down the road. It's relentless. It's non-stop as a manager.
Did you enjoy it? Did you come away saying to yourself, that is something I absolutely want to try again?
I did. I mean, obviously the pressures associated with management are far greater, because you're constantly, in the front line, and you know that going in. You have to go into the job with your eyes wide open. What I really loved is those precious hours on the pitch, be it in the training sessions or, in match day. The dressing rooms before and after, loved those, and always did as a coach, as a trainer. Obviously the challenges are when things aren't going as well as you'd like, and let's be honest, there's very few teams in the country who have, more better days than tougher days. So I did feel that they were tough, particularly in Kildare, a county like Kildare, where there's a huge demand for success, which isn't really balanced in previous success, if that makes sense. So their appetite for winning is huge, and that's fantastic in many ways. But sometimes you have to be pragmatic as well. You're in a province with potentially one of the best teams that's ever played the game, and that's always a challenge. And then when you come out of that province, you're playing other top teams. It's a challenging process. And as I said, I was happy with some of the good moments we had, but disappointed then with matches we felt we could have and should have got over the line, and they were the tough times for me.
So would you do it again? Would you be open to inter-county jobs down the line again?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge that I enjoy. I mean, I enjoy working with people, not just athletes. Like, I love the interaction with the management team, with the backroom team, I would say, as much as with the players. And I love the problem-solving side of it, the tactical side, the analysis. I love every minute of that. Certainly not at the moment. It wouldn't be on my radar. I just need a rest, and a rest from the M8 from Cork to Kildare. But down the line, it's definitely something I would look at again. But it's not something I've given much thought to. Yeah,
I'm sure. So 4 years in charge, you got promotions the first 2 years, and then last year there was that horrible league run, I think the 7 defeats, and then it culminates in the Newbridge moment, and that was this kind of mad national bit of frenzy as much as anything, and you reached the Super 8s. And then into this season, like, in a way, the point you just made about you're next door to the best team maybe most of us have ever seen, and then there's lots of good teams around. I don't know how you feel about a season which, from afar looking in feels a bit flat, but then if you turn around and say, well, look, we lost to Dublin and then we lost to Tyrone. They were both in the All-Ireland final last year. Is that not all being right with the world? So, like, what do you want from me? What a strange year this one is. You lose to Dublin, you lose to Tyrone, out.
Yeah. I'd love to frame it like that. I think it's a little bit simplistic, if I'm being honest, and I always try to be honest. Yes, you'll say, most years that we did lose and get knocked out of a championship, it was against the top 2 or 3 teams in the country. Yeah. But I suppose, when you're reflecting back and you're being honest to yourself, you have to look at everything that happened in between. Even in Division 2 this year, like, it was a really competitive division. But we never really played to our potential. Even matches we won, in the Tipperary in Newbridge, Clare in Newbridge, even Cork down in Cork, down to 14 men. We never really set the world on fire, if that makes sense.
When did you set the world on fire? When is the Mayo game, is that the touchstone?
No, a lot of people reference that because of the whole Newbridge or nowhere side of things. But to be honest, I thought that we were even better against Fermanagh. which was the match to qualify for the Super 8s. A week later up at Navan, I thought we played phenomenal football that day against a team who we all know have a very good defensive system. And we struggled against that system, ironically, this year up above. But we dismantled that defensive system, and I thought we played phenomenal football that day. But believe it or not, the best football we played last year, in my opinion, was the first 30 minutes against Kerry and Kildare. I mean, it was obviously a highly charged day, a beautiful day, fantastic settings of Kildare. And we just went out and we had nothing to play for. We've been beaten in our first 2 matches, both by 2 points. Similar, I guess, to Meath, yesterday. And Cork and Roscommon today. And we just really went at that because we wanted to take something positive from the Super 8s, even though we knew we couldn't go further. And we put on an exhibition of football. I think everyone would agree for that first 25 to 30 minutes. We were 6 points up at that stage against Kerry and Killarney, which, very few teams can do that. A shocking decision then by the referee to send off Neil Flynn on the sideline, innocuous little tackle, but the decision was what it was. Kerry clawed 2 points back before half-time. We went in up 4, down to 14 men. And unfortunately, a quality and ruthless team did what they did to us in the second half.
You don't need to ask them twice.
No.
It was very noticeable in your statement when you were signing off as Kildare manager. You did say, frustratingly, we didn't always realise our potential as a group over these 4 years as manager. This is my greatest regret and ultimately my responsibility, and this undoubtedly informs my decision to step away from this role. Can you put your finger on the why? I mean, I'm sure if you could, you would have tried to fix it, and maybe you did. Not realising your potential. It's a heavy statement to have to sign off with. A very honest one, but it's a heavy one.
Yeah, a lot of people said that to me. I mean, a lot of statements similar to that would just focus on the positives and all the great
To be
things.
fair, and you do rightly say before that, we had consecutive promotions, Division 3 to Division 1. We had the first Leinster final in 8 years. We had progression to the Super 8s. And you could have left it at that and said, so we did achieve good things. Thank you very much. All the best, Cian O'Neill. But your final and parting words were, we didn't quite reach our potential.
Yeah, and I think the bottom line is that's true. And I've always tried to say it true to myself, true with the players, true in my work in CIT. And I just think if you left it at that, it would be disingenuous, to be fair with you. I mean, in year 1, we lost to Westmeath by a point in the Leinster semi-final, very disappointed. They were coming off 2 very poor years, from a Kildare perspective, relegated to Division 3, so it was a rebuild. We just felt that, we really could have done something special then. Year 2 then, we had a really good Leinster Championship. Lost the league final to Clare. Year 2, lost the league final, Division 2 to Galway. But it was a tight match, equally balanced teams. Disappointing, but you got over it. But after a decent performance against Dublin in the Leinster final, we went out to Armagh by 2 in the last 12 match. Another one of those matches I felt we should have got more out of it.
Right.
You move on to year 3 and, I know you said it was a very poor league. I think when you look at the numbers...
You weren't hockeyed in any of those matches.
Yeah.
No, I know.
Particularly, we lost 3 matches by a combination of 4 points, 1, 1 and 2. And I just felt if we had got a win, and particularly any of those early matches, it might have given us the confidence to push on.
Sure.
But the bottom line is we didn't. So all those tight matches, we've always seemed to come out on the wrong side of it. And that's something that the new manager is going to have to look at more than, what we try to fix.
And that's the kind of thing, just coming out on the wrong side of those close matches. That's something that in the media, we'll kind of casually just say, there must be a mental issue there. And, that's it's the easy kind of conclusion to reach, or maybe it just comes down to quality. I don't know. Did you ever manage to stumble upon a trend where you thought, that there's something, a similar thing, be it too many wides at crucial moments, or maybe, players tighten up, or maybe defensive lapses, whatever it is. Was there a trend to any of those very close matches, or each of them on their merits, just different things on the day?
I don't think there's any one thing. I think that would be too simplistic, and if that was the case, well then no team would suffer in the way that we have in such matches. I just feel that very often we were probably a little bit too rash in terms of our decision making, our concentration, and when matches got down to the fine lines.
Difficult thing to improve.
Absolutely. And I think what does help is to be playing the top teams over and over and over again, and getting yourself in those clutch situations. And
maybe it's no coincidence after the poor enough Division 1, you still have a very good summer.
There you have it. Yeah, correct. And I mean, that Mayo match in Newbridge was one that for years beforehand Kildare would have lost. So you would have liked to have thought that, okay, now anytime we're in a tight match again, we have a reference point. We were comfortable against Fermanagh, so that wasn't really a, kind of a a reflection of what we needed to improve upon. But then Monaghan in Croke Park in round 1 of the Super 8s, it was a 1-point game in the 72nd minute, I think. We had possession down in the 13th spot, just at the hill and where it meets the Cusick. And we just needed to orchestrate a score to get the draw. It's a pool stage, a point is hugely valuable. 0, obviously, is useless. And we played an unnecessary ball across the pitch. Got turned over, bang, 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 over the bar. All of a sudden, what could have been a draw match was a 2-point defeat. Yeah. And that hurt us, we against Galway in round 2 in Newbridge. Another fantastic occasion. The Kildare fans were brilliant the way they got behind us again. Similar thing, we went down a man. Daniel got sent off at 25 to go, but we fought to the bitter end, and there was a couple of moments there where we had chances to turn it, and we just never managed to squeeze it enough to get to a level game even.
Did you change as a manager? Did you evolve as a manager? You're very different to the fellow who went in?
Yeah, I think so. Probably in year 1, and I came up, I regard as quite late, because I was with Kerry and we got to an All-Ireland final, and then I was away with work the week after that. So it was even later again when I came in. And it's difficult to get everything in place, in position, so quickly when it hits November, And I tried to do too much, especially coming from the coach background. I probably tried to be the manager, tried to be a coach, tried to look after almost not micromanage, because we had a phenomenal back room, but probably didn't spend enough time, with a helicopter view, standing back and seeing how everything is working on at ground level. And in year 2 then, Ronan Sweeney, who had been with Sligo, had left Sligo, and he's a Moorfield man, a Newbridge man, a very good friend of mine, came on board as coach, and that allowed me to step back, and he's a very, very good coach. Enda Murphy came on board as well. So all of a sudden you could devolve more responsibility there, and as I said, I learned as a manager, learned to step back a bit more, and it actually makes your job easier, but sometimes you have to learn by probably making mistakes, and that was probably the biggest change between year 1 and 2. And I suppose there was obviously learning for the next 3 years, but not with such a steep curve as it would have been in year 1.
How many hours are you putting in a week these days as an inter-county manager? In the height of a championship summer or in the midst of a league campaign?
Oh, well, the toughest is particularly in the Super 8s, because the turnaround is so quick. I could easily spend, because I'm hugely into that type of stuff, 20 hours in video analysis alone, and that's in my office or my house down in Cork. Because if you're looking at 4 matches, you could easily dedicate 3 to 4 hours, depending on what the match is to each. And then you're working back and forth, with your analysis guys. You're trying to clip everything, put it together. Yeah, you easily could. That might be 10 hours during a league, and then obviously there's a down phase with that between league and championship. But no, you would across the week, especially with the travel. You're up over 50. If I was closer to home, I'm sure it would be maybe 35 to 40.
Sure.
But I'd leave Cork generally around 3:30 and get back around 12:30. So that's quite a long day.
Yeah, and you're head of Department of Sports, Leisure, Childhood Studies at Cork Institute of Technology?
Yep, that's correct. Sure.
So that's going to be a demanding job in the teeth of the academic year for sure as well.
Yeah, it is. It's, there's a lot of responsibility with the role, but I'm very lucky. I have fantastic staff in the department, and I suppose this is my chance to get a plug out to Keith Ricken, who's manager of Cork Under-20s, who's the GA Development Officer in CIT, my colleague Con Burns, a lecturer with myself, and 2 of our postgrads, Kevin Smith and Anthony, who were all involved with the Cork 20s yesterday. Phenomenal victory.
It was ridiculous.
After a really slow start to the match. But CIT are sport mad. Our president, Barry O'Connor, he really pushes and encourages that. So without that, I probably wouldn't be able to do the job I do.
Yeah, no doubt. Daniel Flynn is, that's the kind of thing you'd have regrets over. 4-11 last year, and then this year he's, I was reading his piece in the Irish Examiner, and he was jokingly saying to John Fogarty, did Keane send you, and he was just saying, I love playing. So Daniel Flynn, I'm sure people know, really brilliant footballer on his day, and scored 4-11 in the championship last year. This year didn't want to play inter-county. He said, I love playing, I enjoy training, but as somebody said to me, is the juice worth the squeeze? You're putting in all this effort from December, the slog over Christmas, you're missing out on family things and time with your friends, all for a couple of really good games in the summer. I just want to play football with the club, enjoy myself for a while. I want to go travelling as well. I don't know where it's going to end, but it just seems to be spiralling out of control. It's gone 5 nights a week. It's a very understandable point of view, full of perspective in many ways. You're not going to be in your 20s forever. You need to get out and experience the world as well. And now I appreciate you're not going to be in your 20s and able to play inter-county football forever either. Like, how nuts has it gone for the players? He's talking there about 5 nights a week. Is that about right? Is that where a top Kildare footballer needs to be now if he's going to play inter-county, either in the gym on his own or collective training 5 nights a week?
Yeah, well, we'd never have more than 2 collective sessions a week ever.
Really?
Never.
Really? Right. Okay.
Never. In my 4 years, we never had more than 2 collectives.
Would you think
that's with a match at the weekend?
Okay.
Now, sometimes, depending if it's during the league or between league and championship, or definitely in the pre-season, we would have a collective gym session, and then they would have their own individual regional gym session where lads from different parts of the county. But in terms of being on the field, we never ever train more than 2. Plus, maybe if we didn't have a match, obviously we'd have a pitch session at the weekend. And that's it. But I listen, different counties have different practices. It's not for me to say who's right, who's wrong. But that's certainly been our workload for the 4 years that I was involved. And I mean, to answer your question, I think you have to look at what I said in terms of the demands on the manager and travelling the same as players. Dublin might only be 26 miles up the road, but if you're a student in UCD or DCU and there's no direct bus routes, you could be stuck in a car for an hour and a half for a journey that should take you really 40, 42 minutes, you know. So I think that's where the real challenge is for young athletes these days. It's trying to find a balance between college, between football, obviously, which takes a huge amount of time up, but also they're young people, like, you know, social time, family, friends, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever the case may be, you know. And Daniel's always been very honest with that.
I think it's brilliant that he's able to just be honest. Anyone will read that and say, yeah, it's fair enough.
No, absolutely. And I think you have to respect that. I mean, obviously it's not a regret of mine, because ultimately you have to respect, you know, what decisions that players make.
In general terms, are you noticing players kind of saying, jeez, is the juice worth the squeeze more and more? Are you sensing that from some of them, or are the vast majority who are in it love it and it's the best thing in their lives?
I think the vast majority do love it. And I would say vast majority, 95%. I honestly would say that. I mean, we had another pretty experienced player who left the squad this year, but for family reasons. He was having his first child and, you know, finishing off a house, and he just didn't feel, you know, that he could contribute everything. And I mean, you have to appreciate that, and you have to understand it. I suppose one thing I would say we need to exercise caution with is the transition from underage players to senior, where there's almost a feeling of instant gratification or kind of instant success, you know, whether things went well or not at minor 20s, what used to be 21, that you're going to walk onto a senior panel. I mean, that doesn't happen in the real world. You know, it just doesn't. There might be 1 or 2, like we would have had Mark Dempsey this year, and Jimmy Hyland started practically every match. Aaron O'Neill, our sub-keeper. But there's probably a feeling out there, particularly in Kildare, that 7 or 8 or 10 of them should have started for us this year, because they won it under 20s last year. Fantastic achievement, but the reality is, at senior inter-county level now, I mean, with the size, the strength, the power, you know, of players, there's a level of development, not just football development, but physical development and maturity. And I think we need to be careful that we don't rush that process.
Fair enough.
Because it will take time. I remember I was in the park watching Cork play Tip in the early stages of the Munster Hurling Championship, and obviously Tip having a great year under Liam. That they had none of last year's successful under-21 team. And that was a year older, you know. Now, listen, they'll drip feed in as years push on, but they were a year older than our 20s, and there was none of them on the starting team. So I think patience needs to be advised in that regard.